r/AskWomen. Thinking Inkling says, what was the moment in your last relationship that made you say yup, I'm breaking up with you? G1 Ashalful says, I require reassurance in relationships because of CPTSD and anxiety. My ex would call me insecure, belittle me if I was feeling anxious or emotional, talk down to me that I was always making him feel bad. Things had been rocky, and he wasn't treating me how I wanted to be treated, but the final straw for me was when he wouldn't respect my boundaries while we were out together with friends. He wouldn't listen to me, that I didn't want to have his arm around me in a very hot music venue while I was wearing leather in the middle of the summer heat. He got so upset with me that he left me at the venue and then didn't answer when I needed to get inside his complex to pick up my car. The next morning, he didn't even ask if I made it home okay or anything, just that he'd let me in if I still needed my car. He continued to ignore me for the next 24 hours and started following provocative Instagram accounts of girls half his age that live in the new city we just moved to a few months prior. That was enough for me to realize he was never going to treat me how I deserve, and he was selfish in his own world. Zuckley says, okay, so first of all, I was checked out of this relationship, and at this point I was waiting for him to die because I didn't think I could leave. Him dying was a possibility because he had been hospitalized several times in the last few years. I was thoroughly convinced by him I'd never see my son again if I left. I slept in because I closed the night before, and when I woke up, my 2-year-old had made a giant mess of the living room. Mostly paper towels torn up all over the place. Nothing dangerous or requiring deep cleaning. His father had been sleeping on the couch. He didn't work or do much of anything really except make sure the kid didn't die while I was at one of my 2 jobs. When I got up, it was my fault. I sat there having my son help me clean up while getting bizached at for sleeping in. I filled up one trash bag and had another lying flat on the floor, which had barely anything in it. He finished a bottle of 2-liter soda and threw it at me. He hit me with it, and I asked him why he threw it at me. He said he was throwing it at the trash bag. The flat trash bag lying on the floor. He wasn't even that far from me, so his aim couldn't be that bad. I said, it's laying flat, you can't even get it in the bag, so why did you throw it at me? Even if you were, it wouldn't make it in the bag, so you're making more mess, so why? I threw it at the bag. That doesn't make any sense. Why did you throw it at me? Shut the frick up. I got up and started packing shit up. In 20 years I'd never threatened to leave, but I was ready to go then. His crocodile tears didn't stop me, the job security with my primary job did. He'd threatened to leave me over and over and over. I made one threat, which I had every intention of doing, until I got cold feet about my job, and the next time I wanted to leave I kept it to myself, until it was time, and I just took. Specialist Fact says, I was just out of the hospital, after passing a kidney stone, and she had the nerve to tell me I neglected her for no wanting to have sex on those days. U_no_Juno says, we were out for dinner, and he asked me how I thought the relationship was going. I'd been crying over our relationship for weeks, and when he asked me about it, I realized this isn't healthy. We sort of broke up during the dinner, but finished it anyways. Awkward. We still liked each other, but weren't right for each other. Slav God says, not a woman, and wasn't a relationship other than frick buddies, but she punched me. Disastrous Safety 69 says, he found out he wanted kids. I'm CF. Noped right out ta there. Calm_C2211 says, well, it was back and forth already due to emotional abuse, but the final straw was him telling me that I was delusional if I thought anyone could love me when my mother didn't even love me. Bit of a kick in the teeth. Cuteneedlorca9 says, I don't count it as a relationship, but the final straw with the guy I briefly dated before I met my now husband was when he gave me the ultimatum: either you sleep with me tomorrow night or you never see me again. Own Emergency 2166 says, I sat my ex down to talk about how it was important that he carry his weight around the home. Like he should plan and cook meals once or twice a week, clean up after himself, take on tasks that need to be done without a huge lead up of complaining and expecting fanfare afterwards. He just said, I'm too tired from work to do any of that. I can't be expected to do it. I no longer expect him to do it because he is no longer my problem. Actually, we broke up just before COVID hit, and I felt so relieved I wasn't trapped in my house with his man baby self. I heard he had a baby and I sincerely hope he's grown up for the sake of the mother of his child, but I very much doubt it. r/AskWomen. Macaron phrase says, what do you mean when you answer I'll let you know to a date proposition? Is it a soft no, or is there more than that? Randall Sir with letters says, depends how long you're left waiting. She could genuinely have stuff on and need to check, but most often it's a no. Globular says, I mean what I say. If I have made up my mind I would just tell you. I'll let you know means I haven't yet decided, and when I do I will tell you. Sakuramachis says, depends. If it's after a whole conversation that's going well with long responses and KRS followed up by a definitive timeline, ECT. I'll let you know tomorrow after I get my work schedule. It's good. If it's a flat I'll let you know. It's a sign from me of discomfort. Dragon Queen 18 says, for me, it is I need to double check what all I have going on. Then I'll let you know. I have so many doctor appointments lately that my entire month has been insane. Since the first of this month I have had at least 3 appointments per week. This week I had 4. Ejana's milkmaid says, if it's not a yes, it's a no. Gis13 says, I mean it will depend on my mood. Casa says, that means no. Insert caffeine says, I'm going to tell you no when you're too far away to assault me. Sasauce says, honestly it means a no. If I got stuff going on, whether it be work, review, family, or some type of emergency, I'll let you know is the only appropriate answer I can give. Because if I say yes and it feels off, then I'll regret saying yes and then I'd wanna say no lol. Rial Hanel Parks says, it depends on the context and how I'm feeling at the moment, but usually I just need some time to decide. It doesn't necessarily mean no, but it also doesn't necessarily mean yes. It's usually just a way of me not committing right away and maybe considering other options before I make a decision. Close bracket. I am Thafai says, for me it's, I have no intention of ever getting back to you. Callie_Dave says, there's a meme out there that says I put the no in I'll let you know. I'd imagine there's a reason for that. Pantahelia says, when I say that, it's usually a no, rarely it's truly me needing to sleep it over. Usually, when I meet a guy, I know right after the date if I want to see him again, and if I do, I will tell him so. I will not ghost anyone if the I'll let you know is a no, but it's easier for me to tell them that if I'm not still facing them personally. The Lich Queen says, as a response to a specific date/time/activity, I'll let you know because I need to check my availability/social capacity. As a response to a general, let's go out sometime, I'm feeling uncertain about whether I want to go on a date and I want to think about it. In practice that's usually a no, but if it is I'll follow up and say that explicitly, as long as you're not giving me danger vibes. Green Bear 1 says, delayed no. Prince Adubakan says, these posts are absolutely ridiculous. Ask the person what they mean. But usually I'll let you know means they are not interested. Post Kriglo says, For me it's a no. I was so much to me and Ab says. It means you're not a priority, and if he's bored with nothing better to do he'll go on a date with you. If he actually had a legit reason he might not be able to do this thing you proposed doing at such and such time, he'd say for instance, oh I'm supposed to go pick up my brother from the airport, but he said he might change his flight due to a work thing, so I'll get back to you if the situation changes. A guy who's actually interested in you would not leave you hanging or wondering. He'd be concerned you might take what he says as disinterest, and would be clear about his reasons for why he cannot do this time, and would propose a new time and place. r/AskWomen. Hecky Friend says, how do you protect your peace while being there for a friend who is in a toxic relationship? Toxic behaviors including, but not limited to stonewalling, gaslighting, disrespecting body autonomy, dismissal of emotions, etc. How do you be there for your friend when hearing about how they are treated makes you deeply upset? Do you feel there is a point where these kinds of burdens are too much for you as a friend? What about making sure your friend has a pillar of support when needed and is not alone in a toxic relationship they're not yet ready to leave? True Moose 4957 says, you put boundaries on how much you allow someone to trauma dump on you. If it is emotionally draining, you have the right to boundaries. The truth is you can't make her leave, and if she won't or can't, that's out of your hands. It's okay to tell her you don't have the ability to give her the proper support all the time because it's exhausting. I'm not saying to cut her off or not be there for her. I'm saying it doesn't have to come at the expense of your peace. Neon_Sunby says, I have a decompress session where I remind myself her happiness is not my responsibility. I don't need to feel guilty that I'm happy. My happiness doesn't have to be earned. Listening is enough. Sometimes I ask my partner to tell me those things if I don't believe myself. Pristine Leak 9576 says, my friend was helping me through a traumatic relationship and experience and I thanked her. She told me frankly she would not be there forever. It was too painful to watch me stay and continue to be abused when I knew better. It's a big reason why I left. I wasn't going to lose my best friends from childhood and throw away 20 years of friendship. Grizzly Mom says, don't be a therapist, be a friend. It's very draining to constantly be the support for someone in a relationship like that. Idcake says, I have a friend like that. Her boyfriend is just awful. I tell her my honest opinion about the way he behaves and treats her, and tell her that I'll always be there for her. But yeah, it's hard to see your friend getting hurt. I love her, but all I can do is giving her another perspective on her relationship. Huger Distribution 10 says, thanks for sharing this. Yesterday I tried to help a friend with a large and sadly partner's historial. I'm hearing and supporting her, but she decided to come back with relationship when she explicit see how your boyfriend was so cheater and arrogant and sexist. Then I knew this. I decided to set a new boundaries for me because this situation so drained me. Lotus Blossom 79 says, sadly I had to walk away, even though the person wasn't necessarily abusing him, she appeared to be using him. She crashed someone's car, got arrested for having a large quantity of pain pills in the car from her drug dealer, another man living with her, a convicted felon baby daddy, and no car, so my friend chauffeured her everywhere. She explicitly asked him to go inside her, so she could have another baby. I expressed my concern without slandering her. She wanted to meet me, and I didn't want any part of her world. If he's happy, then all the best, but it was too hard to hear more stories and watch my friend fall for this woman who seemed to want money and a sperm donor. Ladalamondrop 209 says, my best friend really hasn't had the greatest history of dating partners. She was never really too negatively affected by it, so I'd never really have much reason to talk her out of it, etc. Obviously I wasn't encouraging of keeping/staying in the relationship, but she really wasn't going to listen to me anyways. This was until one particularly shitty guy, who was just a shit person, poor catch by any measure, except maybe he was kinda tall. He was poor, ugly, basically blind, no career, mooched off her, had a bad temper, was previously in jail, had a crazy baby mama, whom he shares 2 supposed horrid kids with, etc. I'm not necessarily saying some of those things are bad qualities, but for a woman with good options, which she definitely does, she could do a lot better. Then, he hit her and pushed her down the stairs, cops were called, etc. And I was like, no. You need to leave this pose. And she gives me the whole, but I love him crap like every other loser/idiot guy she's dated. It honestly seemed like I was more hurt/upset from this situation than she was. I think it was our biggest argument. We didn't talk for months. At some point she nonchalantly messaged me like any other day, and it was all fine again. But it made me realize there's nothing I could do if she insists on staying and loves that person. So generally, I'd just focus on being there for her as opposed to getting her out of the situation. She is psychologically strong/resilient, and she does/will defend herself. She definitely ended up hurting that guy who shoved her more. So, I'm honestly not worried about her safety/well-being. I know she'd be okay, I'm just not often a huge fan of the situation/people she chooses to be with. But I love her. I know if a person thinks they are in love, I can't do anything about it. I can only do what I can to be there for them, and I make peace with that. PBD 1996 says, I was in a friendship like this. She talked about her toxic relationship endlessly, and it was so exhausting. I brought it up with my therapist. My therapist told me that when my friend brought up her toxic relationship, I should respond with, I'm sorry you're experiencing that. However, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not equipped to have this conversation. I do not have the emotional capacity nor the credentials. My friend did not take kindly to my response. After a few more attempts from her to dump her problems on me, and a few more attempts from me to set boundaries, we stopped being friends. Apparently, she only saw me as her own free personal therapist, and when I didn't want to be that for her anymore, I was no good. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.